I spoke to Blake Solly, the South CEO, this morning before coming on air. He says there's no meeting, there's no review. He referred me to the comments from Nick Pappas, the chairman, last week, and said if the team put in and showed determination and put in a stronger performance, then there'd be no need to pull the trigger on Jason Demetriou, and that's the case. I think it's bought him more time, and I think it's bought the club more time to work out who a possible coach could be. They've got, obviously, the bye, and then they've got Storm Penrith. The interesting thing for me is that Russell Crowe, the heartbeat of the club, the co-owner, who's been there since 2006. He's back in the country after shooting a film in Budapest, as you do, and that's going to be a very interesting situation with him coming back. The biggest story for me at South isn't Jason Demetriou. It's actually the power play that's going on behind the scenes. I think they can deny it all they want, but Russell Crowe is definitely eyeing off the possibility of Wayne Bennett. I think he's looking at the possibility of Shane Richardson, who used to be their head of football, coming back as well. And if that happens, then there'll be factions at that club on that board who will push back on Russell.
So is it a case now that he has bought more time? They, as you mentioned, have the bye. Then they have some pretty big matches as well. Is it the next time they have a big loss, if that's to happen, is that that's going
to start to get the ball rolling for sure. I've got no doubt that if South had been lapped last night, and if they obviously had all those injuries in the first half, if they didn't show what they showed last night, then Jason Demetriou will probably be clearing at his desk as we speak.
The power struggle between the board and Russell, who wins? It's
an interesting one, Joey, because Russell was the 75% owner of that club, and then he's let Mike Cannon-Brooks in and obviously let James Packer in. I'm told that those two, their board representatives, are having more of a say. They used to just defer to Russell and say whatever Russell wants. Then there's the other 25%, which is the members, which is chaired by Nick Pappas, who's been around forever. So everyone was sort of rowing in the one direction there a couple of years ago, but as always happens with a losing football team, all the factions start having their say. The other thing is there's other factions outside of that tip in a lot of money to South Sydney. And I've got no doubt that that's where the approach to Mal Meninga as a possible caretaker came last week. But it's all very destabilising.
They put money in the club.
Well, they're benefactors. A lot of the big clubs have big name sponsors or just figures in the background putting in money to help them.
Helping.
And and every club would have it, the big clubs in particular, but you just don't hear from them. And the good clubs you don't hear from. But there's definitely... You talk to South about... The Meninga thing, to me, says everything. You talk to South, they say absolutely no one within the four walls of South made that approach to Mal Meninga. But you talk to Mal and someone certainly did that's connected with South.
You say the big clubs don't say anything. There's been a lot of noise around South Sydney and it's clearly affecting their coach, it's affecting their playing group, the attention that they're getting. There hasn't been an official statement made by South Sydney. Do you think that they need a voice and they need to come out and say, well, we're supporting our coach, he's not going anywhere, or we are looking at our options?
Nick Pappas, the chairman, made some comments, pretty cliched comments to members of the press last week, but it wasn't a statement, you're right, from the club. I think they could have come out and nailed it a bit sooner, but yeah, it's very un-South Sydney-like for so much of the noise that's come out in the last 7 days. The thing that I thought was a real issue was the stuff's getting leaked out from video sessions, which to me is always dangerous. Like if you're
that was happening last year.
It was happening last year too, but you know, you guys know better than me. Like, isn't that the place where you have honest conversations in a video session? And to say that's symbolic of what's going on in the club, I think's dangerous. The fact that it got out, I think, is the bigger concern.
So in a month's time, what's happening at South?
Well, it depends on what happens with performances.
In your opinion, what do you think will be happening?
I've got no doubt that there's a big push for Bennett to come back.
So they go by and then they go Storm and Penrith.
Yes. Yeah.
So really,
and if they get lapped by those two teams, then it's going to be... to be honest, I can't see Jason Demetriou surviving. I just think a big club with South needs a big-name coach. You've got Wayne in the background saying he's not interested but telling others that he is, and people talking to him on behalf of the club. I would still be surprised if Wayne wasn't there next year. I don't think Sam Burgess. I don't think there's an appetite for Sam to come back straight away, but maybe down the track.
Would you say that there needs to be a rebuild at South?
In terms of the club structure?
Well, everything. Roster.
You guys would know better than
This
me.
guy on screen, Bill.
Well,
he-
that's
he-
the next question.
But I don't think.
Does Wayne want to be a part of a rebuild?
But this
I don't
guy
think
on
they
screen,
need a rebuild, do they? They have
he,
some pretty
he
quality players.
rebuilds quicker than anyone. and
That's
he
right.
rebuilds through their personality, through their connection.
Their salary cap.
Look what
Have
we've done
they?
with the Dolphins.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're short of forwards. Have they got cap space to go out and buy a couple of?
I think they've got some
world-class
young
forwards?
blokes. I think Mambazula showed last night that he should probably
But they're getting
start,
rolled
but-
in the
Do
middle.
you-
If you get
see
if
that
you get the
there's
best out of
need?
Latrell, Cody, Damien Cook, Cam Murray, there's enough quality
Yeah,
in
but that's
that
not
squad.
that's not in the forward pack. You get
Yeah.
Yeah, there's
forwards-
enough good players there.
Yeah.
though.
The big thing
You
with-
look at Melbourne. Some of Melbourne's forward packs at different stages. You think, like what's happening here, but simplify their job and get them not making mistakes. And they've always played a simple game, South Sydney.
But
What-
don't you think Bennett can unlock Latrell? Bennett can get Latrell going. He did it before, and I think he could do it again.
He manages Latrell very well.
He does.
But what
So do you think that's the big plus? Getting a coach who can unlock Latrell.
I do, and I also think that Wayne will want to do it. Wayne loves the romance of. He's big driven. I don't know if I said this on this show before, but he's driven by being the first coach in history to win 3 premierships at 3 different clubs. No one's ever done that in the history of the game, and Wayne's very keen on cementing his place in history if it's not there already. So, the other question is, who else is there? Like, who else could coach? I think everyone talks about there being a lack of halfbacks in the game. I reckon the bigger problem is the lack of coaches because clubs have just churned through so many of them.
Billy,
Yes.
you interested?
No.
What does this do for the playing group, though? It feels like there's a lot of instability at the club, and knowing that your coach is really walking a fine line for the next bad performance, what does that do for the playing group and the team?
It just adds pressure, doesn't it?
Just adds pressure.
And you're playing for the wrong reasons. Like you start playing for results, and like your mind's not concentrating on the little effort things in the game. We all know what builds performances, and when you've got this pressure hanging over your head, that results are going to determine what happens to my position, and the noise just gets too loud.
Do you think Wayne and Mal could coach together?
No.
Okay.
I don't think so. I think Mal's more worried about keeping the Australian job.
I think
And
Wayne-
I think as soon as Mal realised last week that he couldn't do both, that was the end.
And
That was the end of the conversation.
Wayne likes to take his own people, conditioners, all that. Would that happen?
I think if he came, he wanted clean out of the football department. It's a bit different.
So it is a rebuild.
Well, it would be in terms of the
An
football
internal-
department, not
Yeah.
in terms of so much of the roster. I don't think.
Wayne and Sam Burgess could work.
Man, you can't
Sam
just
won't
clean out a roster. Mate, there's contracts galore.
No, but that's what I'm saying.
yeah.
You're talking more
think
the
they're
coaching staff
They're
and-
short of forwards. How are they going to go out and buy some forwards if they've got no cap space?
Yeah, but you got some young like Davy Moali,
Yeah.
blokes like that.
Tom Burgess is playing well. You got
Tom's
you got
gone next year. He's retiring.
Jai
at the end of the
Arrow.
year.
Jai Arrow will be back. There's enough there. Like Keon, there's some good quality in amongst it. Like surely you got to go and get a couple of front rowers.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, I think we were saying before, like it's about unlocking Latrell, and if you're going to stick with Latrell and Cody and all those blokes, and it's there's enough good players there to do a job for them to win games.
Warrington have said they won't release Sam.
So when do you see Sam potentially coming back in 2 years?
I think it depends on if Wayne takes over next year, but there's no secret that those two are very close. But I don't think I think that'd be the real pushback from certain people at the board if Sam was part of the deal with Sam coming back straight away. But I don't think that's happening. I think Sam sort of indicated he doesn't want to come back straight away.
What about the players and Sam Burgess?
I think
Is
that's
there
a bigger
fracture
problem.
there?
Yeah, I think that'll be the problem. The way that he left at the end of last season and how he was unhappy with certain players getting preferential treatment, I don't think he could walk straight back into that football club without some pretty serious conversations.
As in, you'd expect someone else to come in, Wayne to
appoint his own assistant coach. Remember, it was Wayne who, when he got the job at South Sydney, who said Jason Demetriou should be his successor. So it was Wayne who wanted him. Wanted him there.
How come you reckon no one performs as a coach after Wayne? Why is that?
I've got a few theories on it. I think Wayne loved to play good cop, bad cop with his assistant coaches. He used to do it with Bellyache at Brisbane. You talk to those Brisbane blokes, he would ridicule him in front of the other players, but Bellyache would cop it. Like, he's such a professional because he knew that it was part of trying to, get the team going. I just think it's hard to follow him in. And you can imagine, like, if you're Jason Demetriou and you're being the assistant coach and that's the voice after Wayne, the great Wayne Bennett, it's pretty hard. And it happens everywhere you go. And again, he was the one who said Demetriou should follow him.
And do you think in the next week or so, with the fact that the South Sydney Rabbitohs have the bye, do you think a lot of this chatter will die down, or do you think it's going to be something that we're going to be hearing for the next 2 weeks?
Depends on those reptiles of the press, whether they decide to stop writing about it and getting all the clicks.
Frothing, aren't they?
Anyone in
love it.
particular
They
you're talking about?
I've got a few ideas of who I'm talking about, but look. It's a story that's not going to go away, and it's only like a bye is just going to sort of take the heat off them for a bit longer. But I think the fact that Russell's back in town, I think that's going to keep things bubbling along.
That's going to stir the pot a little bit.